Good afternoon, Gill. Thank you so much for coming and spending your time with us. Can you, for the sake of this interview, just tell us a little bit about yourself and so that we can get to know you a little bit?
Right, well, I'm 74, most of the way to 75, and I feel as if things are very suspenseful right now, Carol, and I want to stay around for as long as I can in order to see what happens, because it's like the final stages of a really exciting action story, and you don't know whether the heroes of the story are going to survive or not.
Wow.
We don't know whether human society is going to survive or not. We don't know whether many humans are going to survive or not. We don't know whether much life on Earth is going to survive or not. And I don't know what can be more suspenseful than that. And it's all up to us. We're the ones that have the power to decide what's going to happen.
Wow, I've never heard it discussed as suspenseful, like a suspense novel, an adventure story. What is going to happen? So you're saying it's up to us. Can you say a little bit more say a little bit more about what's threatening us? What is the suspense?
Well, this is the tricky part, because what's threatening us is our own actions and our own habits. And it's very hard to break habits, very hard to change habits. And
which habits need changing?
well, there are lots of habits that need changing, but the key ones that are threatening us now are the way we depend on vast doses of fossil fuels to run our economy, our society and our lives. And we've got to kick that habit pretty smartly, otherwise the economy, the society and the lives won't continue.
Right. What's smartly for you? Like if we think geographical terms, geology terms, that could be 100, 200 years. What's smartly for you?
Well, the United Nations and the IPCC, which is the world's scientists reporting to the United Nations, they were saying very recently that we only had a decade to change our ways. But I think that time is actually shortened considerably, because for one thing, climate change is happening much faster than scientists expected. All along they've been sort of blindsided by the speed with which it developed. You know, it's gone much faster than their modelling originally suggested, and that's frightening for the scientists to see how fast it's happening.
So getting rid of fossil fuels over the next
3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years.
And that's getting to something that's going to be very difficult for us to achieve. Yeah, if we would have reacted sooner, and then we could have gone more gradually, we would have had the luxury of more time, but we don't have that time. We've run ourselves just about out of time.
Right.
It's like we're on the highway to hell, and we're just ignoring every exit that we come to. We've been ignoring those exits for a long time now, for decades, since we knew where this highway was taking us. And
So some people
the
are
last
calling.
exit might be sort of
Yeah.
just a few years away.
So some people are calling for the governments of the world to declare a climate and ecological emergency. What thoughts do you have about that?
Oh, well, obviously it's an emergency. It's obvious to me that it's an emergency, and I think it's obvious to people who observe the state of the planet closely that it's an emergency. And to biological scientists, seeing what's happening to populations of various plants and animals that are going extinct, it's obvious.
So that makes me wonder how we might get this turnaround of society. We declare an emergency, we acknowledge it's an emergency. What do we do? Like, what do you need the new incoming government to do, ideally?
Well, I think they need to concentrate on restoring greater equality in our society, because unless we're all in this together, unless we know that we're all in this together, we can't all act together, and we're going to have to act together in order to rescue ourselves from this pickle that we're in.
Right.
And yeah, so I would like to see them bring in a swingeing carbon tax,
Right.
which would have all sorts of good effects. It would incentivise and speed up the switch from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources, and it would price a lot of fossil fuel use just out of consideration. And then the proceeds from that carbon tax need to be shared equitably amongst the whole population of New Zealand, so that every citizen gets an equal share and maybe a half share for children. And that would sort of compensate people for the price hikes that are going to result from the carbon tax, and it would enable them to survive that and make personal choices that cut down their carbon footprint.
Right.
So that's what we
we
need.
Okay.
It's okay.
And that's what James Hansen argued for decades ago now. And he's been arguing for that for a long time. James Hansen is one of the world's leading climate scientists, who used to be head of NASA in the United States, and who visited New Zealand back in 2011. Yeah.
Wow. There's also a call for zero emissions, and we've got the Zero Emissions Act for 2050. I'm just wondering what thoughts you have about New Zealand having zero emissions for 2050.
Well, it's way too late. I think that needs to be brought forward I think even 2030 is too late.
Wow.
So
What date would you give?
well, 2025 probably.
Right.
I know that we don't actually have a magic wand at our disposal, and I know that people can't change everything in a heartbeat, but we need to make up our minds right now to get on and do the things that we need to do. And then we're definitely sort of on track to lose a lot of the good things that are in this world already. Not everything can be saved at this point in time. But if we commit to looking after each other and our planet, then life could be so much better.
Right.
And then we can help each other to survive the hard times that lie in the decades ahead. And then maybe our grandchildren's grandchildren will be able to enjoy better times one day in the future.
Gill, so much wisdom, so much knowledge, so much experience over your decades of life. I want to thank you so much for giving your time today to be a part of the election roadshow for Extinction Rebellion, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.